don't know what just happened to our intro. I don't know if it just didn't play for me or if it played for you guys. But all right, there's something wrong with my computer. Anyways, welcome to the Talkin Kop. My name's Ashley. I'm here with our normal everyday guys, Chris and Kev. And we're here to talk about a preview for Newcastle. And then we're also going to talk about transfers, which will probably be the shortest conversation ever. But it might be more of an aspirational conversation. But we're gonna try to, as the title suggests, answer the question, what are Liverpool thinking during this transfer window? So we will get to that. But we're going to start with the kind of less exciting, if you want to call it, news of the game coming up this weekend. So we play the late game on Saturday against Newcastle. It is at home at Anfield, one of a couple of home games that we have coming up. Kev, you've had the night to sort of allow the 6-0 to percolate in your mind. Yeah. You've thought about, the loss of Frimpong. We have not heard from Arne Slot yet just because of, press conference scheduling. But going into this game this weekend, what are you feeling just off the bat?
Well, I'm kind of like going to Rafiki mode about last night because it's in the past. It's like, yeah, that was nice. It's what you expect. You beat the side that come out and try to play football against you. You beat them handy. And you remind yourself that's why sides in the Premier League don't play like that against us, because we generally do rip sides apart who try to play like that against us. So I don't expect Newcastle to be as gung-ho as Karabakh were, but I expect them to have a go. The games against Newcastle are absolutely mad. They always are. They're always a good watch. First and foremost, so for a neutral Saturday night, 8 o'clock kickoff, it will be one to watch. You won't want to miss it. For us, it's going to be like Newcastle haven't travelled well this season. Their away form ain't great, and we've looked shaky. So that either screams 4-4 or 0-0, and I can't see the latter. I just see goals in this game from both sides. And it'll depend on how much last night took out of Newcastle with the away performance in PSG, because I just had a quick look at the stats of the game, and PSG dominated the ball, so Newcastle would have had to chase a bit. But Newcastle had the chances as well. Pope saved the penalty. It was, well, all accounts, a really good performance, so they could take confidence from that. It's going to be a crazy game. And the fact that Bruno Guimaraes didn't come off the bench should mean that he's available for them at the weekend.
They'll certainly be hoping so.
They'll be hoping so for sure. I mean, Davey will be in the chat there and he'll be like, please, please, please get him on the pitch. And whether they go with Wolfenmatt up front or Vissa or both, or maybe just Vissa, I don't know. We're going to have to deal with different problems. And depending on who's available for us, I still fancy us over them. But that's more heart than head at the minute, because on current form, you can't fancy Liverpool against anyone. Not in the Premier League. Not strongly anyway. If you were going to put your last tenner in a bet on something this weekend, you're not going to be putting on a Liverpool win against Newcastle. But my heart says it's going to be a Liverpool win, so I always let my heart rule ahead when it comes to the Liverpool games, no matter what season it's in. This season is no different.
Well, statistically speaking, the last 18 Premier League games between Liverpool and Newcastle has seen Liverpool win 13 and draw 5 with no losses. And then you want to contrast that with the current Liverpool form. Our current 5-game winless streak in the league, which is drawn 4, lost 1, is the longest in a single season since November and January of 2022 to 2023 under Jared Houllier. And if we were to fail to win this next match, it would be the first time since 1954 that we failed to win that many games in a new year. So you have two kind of opposing stats there, Chris. You have a history saying that we do pretty well against Newcastle, and then you have sort of the modern history of Liverpool that says, we're still pretty rocky despite that hammering of Karabakh. I'll ask you the same question. How are you feeling after kind of letting that result percolate. Do you feel more confident than you did earlier this week? Or do you feel like that was just a blip and really down to the quality of the opposition?
I don't think Wednesday has any impact on how we play in the Premier League. We're a different beast in Europe. We finished third in the group. We've generally in Europe, we're pretty good. If I was Newcastle, I'd play exactly the same way you played against PSG. Play your back five, play deep, wait for the mistake, and it'll come. Because that's kind of what we've been like. I was having a quick look at our form for the last 6 games. Newcastle are 9th in form for their last 6 away games. In the last 6 home games, we're 12th. So our home form...
So we're even worse.
So our home form in the last 6 games has been worse than Newcastle's away form in the last 6 games. Again, depends who you're playing, and I know these things could even themselves out, but we're not pulling up any trees at home at the moment. If you look at us at home at the moment, we've dropped far too many points in terms of shouldn't be losing at home to Forest, lost to a very average Man United side, and too many draws against newly promoted side. So doesn't fill you with confidence. Hopefully we should have Karate back, so we should have our usual centre back pairing there, which means Gravenberch go back in centre mid. Right back, because Richard Hughes and everyone says they don't panic and everything's fine, despite the fact you've got no fucking right backs in the club, apart from one that he hates, and he's not going to play. So it's going to be a midfielder at right back, or the other shout is try Robbo at right back. Can't do any fucking worse.
Well, there's rumors circulating on Twitter that may have happened in training today. We'll get to our lineups in a little bit.
I think they're reading our WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, our WhatsApp messages are also just bonkers bananas. So I certainly wouldn't be taking any sort of truth from those if someone is hacking into our WhatsApp messages. Kev, I'm going to throw another stat at you. So only Sunderland and Wolves, both with 7, have failed to score in more Premier League away games than Newcastle this season, which is 6. And Newcastle, 70% of their away goals this season, 7 out of 10, have come in their 2 wins on the road against Everton and Burnley. So if you take those 2 wins out of the equation, you're talking 3 goals in all away games across all of the season. Now, I'm not going to throw it out there that Liverpool can't break that record and can't make that change for them. But I'm looking at Davey in the chat, and he looks pretty downcast in terms of what he's predicting. He's saying we're shocking away from home. The record at Anfield is even worse. He's saying 3-1 to you. So if you guys don't know, Davey is our resident Newcastle fan who is here through thick and thin, and he is here kind of providing these insider insights. One of which is that Visa will replace Voltemata in the starting lineup, which would be interesting. Kev, so taking that under consideration, do you think that this is the game that Newcastle can turn that form around? Do you think that we're going to see the same defensive frailties that we saw in Bournemouth in this game? I guess is probably the bigger question at a whole.
Possibly. I think you can't. The way we're playing at the minute, it's hard to read anything into a performance for performance. But I think against the bigger clubs, we tend to play better. Maybe it's because it's a fear factor going into it. It keeps everyone concentrated for longer, and you don't take winning positions for granted. But I honestly think even when we played them at St. James's Park, we don't. I mean. Even up to the red card, yeah, they had the ball, but they didn't really create much. We were pretty solid, and then when the red card came, it changed the game, obviously. But it's like I think that we're player for player better than them. All right, it's just a case of what Liverpool turn up on the day. We need Konate back for sure. You need to get that centre back solidity back into the side, and Gravenberch, you hope, or McAllister, and well, ideally both of them, will provide a more stable base for the midfield to be able to work from. I don't want to see us going gung-ho against this lot because they do have pace that they can hurt you on the counter with. And in your man, what's his name, Murphy, he's found form again. He's creating chances again. So it's like they have threats, they have dangers, but we're well aware of them. There's nothing that Newcastle are going to do in this game that's going to surprise us or surprise anyone. You know, with the players that they have, it's nothing that we haven't come up against before. Their style of play, the way Eddie Howe plays, it's not going to be new to us. We've played them enough. We played in Eddie Howe Newcastle enough to know exactly what's coming. So they can't go into it and say we weren't prepared for X, Y, and Z, because they're not going to reinvent the wheel, Newcastle. They're going to play how they play. You know, whether they play with a back three and use Dan Burn to try to nullify Salah like they normally try to do, or they try to play for set pieces, which is kind of common. They go really direct, which is how I would think that they would go. That's why I'd be surprised if Vista started over Wolfenmatter, or maybe they play both. You know, with Dan Burn in the side as well, that they have that extra height and physicality, especially if Konate doesn't start. So, I don't know how this is going to go, and that's the truth. I hope Newcastle come out and try to play. That's the one thing that I hope they don't try to sit in and play on the counter, because look, they need the points as well. You know, their model is set up on being in Europe. And they have to get back into Europe in the same way as we have to get back into the Champions League spot. So a point is no good for either side. You know, I think going into the next two home games, we need to keep pace with the two sides that are above us at the minute. So irrespective of who we're playing, we have to at least match their results just to keep pace with them. The thing is, if we lose, Newcastle can go ahead of us. Newcastle, I think, are 9th. They can jump ahead of us if they beat us.
Yeah, I mean, we're as close to 11th as we are to 4th.
We're on the same goal difference as them. So if they beat us, they go ahead of us.
And for comparison, Manchester United are facing Fulham this weekend, and Chelsea are facing West Ham. Exactly. So we definitely, I think, have the hardest of those fixtures. Look, Chris, I will cast your mind back to the beginning of the season where we were 2-0 up. We had Anthony Gordon just making a really rash decision. I think there was no doubt that was a red card, but you know, that should have been smooth sailing for us, and it was anything but. Newcastle were able to fight back to get it to 2-2, and then it took that last minute winner from Rio Ngamoa, which, you know, credit where credit is due. Amazing goal, very aesthetically pleasing. However, it was almost against the run of play, that goal, and it felt very helter-skelter. And I think my one concern here with this match is similar to the Bournemouth match, where it's going to be maybe a ding-dong match, where it's just like basketball. And I worry about the fitness of our squad right now in dealing with that. So I don't know if Davey can provide any sort of insight in the chat about the general fitness of Newcastle, or what the fans believe the general fitness of Newcastle is. But I just don't fancy our players just having to go like full pelt for 90 minutes, especially with the lack of depth that we have. You know, one of the things that definitely will come into play for them is if Bruno Guimaraes is available to play. But Chris, how do you think stylistically this game is going to go?
See, if I was Slot, I think you stick with this 4-2-2, keep it central, you know. And that's what our strength is. Our strength isn't out wide. We don't have enough pace out wide. So,
well, what happens if we have Endo at right back, for example, or a Robertson at left back? We're not going to be able to play 4-2-2 because we're not going to be able to get any wide pace.
Well, I think you have Kirk's come back in at left back. I'm pretty certain of that. If it's Robert at right back, he can play there, and what it can do is it's kind of what you did against Carabao. What you should do most teams is, because it was Endo, we did at the time say Endo tuck in and make it a back three, and you allowed Robbo to bomb on. You do the other way, tell Robbo to tuck in a bit, and you let Kirkers go, and then you just use your strength that way. Because the one area we've got options at the moment is midfield. So we've got Gravenberch, we've got McAllister, we've got Szoboszlai. Hopefully Jones is healthy after his illness.
Yeah, we'll hear about that tomorrow.
And we've got Florian Wirtz, who at the moment, to be fair, I think he's got 7 or 8 goal contributions since Christmas. I think he's 7. He's the most in form attacking midfielder. So it's definitely, it's got to be situations that gets him on the ball, because him and Hugo are the two shining lights. The other attacker, it could be Mo, could be Gakpo. It's flip for coin, really, because neither are pulling up any trees. He'll probably go with Salah, partly for continuity. And if it's to Salah's record, I think he's our second highest scorer against Newcastle in all games. I think there's only, I was checking before, if it was only one other player who scored more goals. Michael Owen. Michael Owen's got 14 goals against Newcastle, and Salah's got 10. So,
Well, for context, the lineup that we went with at the start of the season was Alisson in goal, so Bosley at right back, Konate, Virgil, Kirkes, Jose and Gravenberch as your two holding midfielders, Salah, Wirtz, and Gakpo with Ekitike up front.
So we could do the same thing, theoretically. Yeah. We could do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we could. And to be honest, all things being equal, Jones is available. If Jones is available, Konate is available, there's every chance that'll be the lineup.
Well, especially if you want to add a little bit of combativeness into that midfield, because that, to me, is Newcastle's greatest strength.
But you can still change the style. You could do 4-2-3-1. You could do 4-2-2.
I'm not sold on the 4-2-2, to be honest, guys. I don't know. Kev, do you want to talk about it's basically the same question that I just asked Chris? How would you line up? Because for me, that 4-2-2 just left us incredibly exposed. And I know he's trying to make something work with what he's got in terms of squad, but I don't think this is the way forward, especially not against the teams that we're going to be playing. Because I think that.
Go on.
What?
Sorry. Go on. Let you finish. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think better teams and Bournemouth, in the scale of things, I think is a better team than Marseille. And then I think Newcastle's the next step up, and then we're going to play City. I think all of those teams will exploit the weaknesses of that 4-2-2 right now, the way that we're playing it, in my opinion. But Kev, same question.
Yeah, we're not going to play with split strikers. Not against this Newcastle side. They've just got too much. They've got too many ways to hurt you. If you leave that box open and we don't have fullbacks to bomb on, we don't have width in that system, we just don't. So the way we'll line up against Newcastle is the way we've always lined up against Newcastle. We don't really play 4-2-2 anyway. We haven't. The only thing that we've done is split strikers, I think once or twice. And even then, it hasn't really been effective in the league. So just you have to look at what you've got, the tools that you have available to him, and then work something out to get the best out of individuals. And I sent you guys a link to Anthony Gordon's press conference before
I saw that
before the Newcastle game, and I think he was bang on in his assessment of the difference between the league, the Premier League, and the Champions League. And for anyone who hasn't watched it, he basically turned around and said about the Premier League, it's more of a physical running game where it's win your individual battles, and it's games are coming down to moments and bits of individual brilliance or set pieces. And trust your eyes. We all watch enough football to see the difference, and we all watched plenty of Champions League football this season to see the difference between the two. The Champions League is actually a much better watch, full stop, because you're actually seeing some football being played. And Newcastle, coming off the back of their performance in Paris, are going to be buoyed by it, but I think they're going to have to come at this game in the same way as we are. Look at the squad that's available to him. I think Davey was saying that Joe Linton isn't going to be available to him, so Lewis Miley will probably start in midfield. They'll probably have Guimaraes back, Tonali, but they'll play 4-3-3. They'll do their normal thing. So if you can win the battle in the middle of the park by outnumbering them in the middle of the park, that's probably the best way to get at them. But we tend to attack centrally. We don't really get the ball wide and put crosses in. It's get the ball wide to work it back in to create space in the middle. And it's having players to create movement to move in the middle, to try to move Newcastle around. And away from home, they can be got at. They haven't got a great record away from home. The confidence isn't what it was over the last couple of years. They're in the same way as we are. neither side are what they were 2 years ago or 12 months ago. So they both have frailties. We have frailties. They have frailties, and it's just a case of who can win their battles on the day. And I think for me, this week is more midfield is more important than anything. And I think it's a massive game for McAllister. It's a massive game for Gravenberch, because if they can get on top in the middle of the park, kind of like how we did in the second half against Arsenal, manage possession and give Wirtz space between the lines to try to make something happen. That's our way home, I think, in this one. Ideally, if you had a right back, you could play a diamond maybe, but when you don't have a right back available to you, and it wouldn't surprise me actually if he does go with Endo again and tells Endo to do that job where he just sits into a back three when we're on the ball to try to protect against the counters.
I just don't know if Endo can do that many minutes in a week. But maybe.
Yeah, even if you get an hour out of him, and then maybe you have to make the change with Sabo back. But at the end of the day, it's one thing you can level at Endo. He'll give you everything. He'll try his socks off. Will he make mistakes? Yeah, he will. But he'll give you everything. And, he showed last night his ability to see positions on the pitch where he needs to be was really good. And he's got quality on the ball. And he can pass the ball, he can move it up the pitch, and he's disciplined enough to be able to stay in his position. The other thing, Salah, if he's playing on that right side, he's going to have to track back properly. He can't track back in a lackadaisical way, in a half-hearted way. He's going to have to work back. But the options that Slot has available to him off the bench are very limited. They're not going to be any different to what we had the other night, probably, one less. Frimpong isn't there, so hopefully Jones comes back in, Konate comes back in, possibly Joe Gomez is available.
Yeah, he's close. I don't know if he'll make it.
Even if he's available off the bench, if it's a facial injury, he can wear a face mask, and if it must be a facial injury, if it's
a knee injury,
I don't know. I think
I've heard that's what
I've heard knee, I've heard hip, I've heard ribs, I've heard face.
He might just be broken. All those things.
Yeah, it could be just digestives, but at the end of the day,
it's Joe Gomez. All of the things can be true.
Everything is possible, but if it's a case that he's available and he's really close, I'd rather have him on the bench that he could give you 20 minutes at the end if need be, because his match fitness isn't going to be a problem. It's just a case of if he's over the injury enough to be able to give you 20 minutes. And you look at the kids who come on last night. I thought Trey did a good job.
Yeah, he only looked really bright.
I thought he was tidy. So maybe it's a case we're looking at Rio all the time, and we're not really looking at Trey Neone at all. And
he's arguably the more experienced of the two.
He's technically a really good footballer. 10 minutes to go. If you want someone in the middle of the park, he's combative. He's physically able for the game. You saw, if anyone watched the Villa game tonight, you've seen the Villa kids come on at the end and combine for their winner. They were like 18, 19, I think 18 and 19. So
the goal scorer was 19. I don't know about the other kid.
But it's like they're all in and around the same age group, and they're being effective in decent games. So he's in and around the squad for a reason. Give him his head. What's the worst that can happen? We're in shit form as it is. If we lose a game of football, we lose a game of football. But you've got to find out about these players. Sooner or later, we're going to have to find out about these kids. And
Ramsey's another one.
And the thing, he is. And the thing is, we don't know. If we assume what's happening in the transfer window is happening in the transfer window, we're definitely going to need to play some of these young players at some point between now and the end of the season. So there have to be options. Whether Slot is willing to use them is a different matter. But I think for the what we're talking, another 15, 16 games in the league, something like that. Plus cup competitions. The same core of 13, 14 players can't do it all. They can't do everything. They just physically can't.
And we're seeing that. And we're going to get to the transfer section in just a few moments, but this is a good a good point to make here where, playing the kids is going to have to come into rotation, because you've seen in just the 2 games alone. And granted, like, sometimes you can't account for, knee-on-knee collisions with Allison Becker, but we are playing quite a few of, especially our defenders, into red zones. And we've seen 2 of them drop just in the last 2 games. And I think I said this maybe a few weeks ago, where the more that you play these same core players over and over and over again, the more likely they are to just have these freak injuries. And they're not even freak injuries. That's not the right word, because they are predictable injuries based on the amount of time that they're playing. And so if we're not going to rotate properly, look, it's something that we'll discuss at the second half of the show. I want to get your lineups and your predictions before we do go into that transfer section. If you guys are in the chat and you want to throw in your lineups and your predictions and goal scorers, we'll read them out as well. Chris, I'm going to come to you first. Give me your lineup and then give me your prediction.
Alisson, Kirkes, Van Dijk, Canate. He's probably going to go Soboslai. Midfield would be Gravenberch, McAllister, Jones, assuming he's not ill. Verts, Ekitike, and Salah.
Okay.
And prediction-wise, I'll go 2-1. Ekitike and Soboslai.
Okay. Kev, same question.
Look, mine isn't going to be too much different to what Chris said, but I wouldn't be surprised if Robertson starts. I think he's played all right since he's come back into the side. And yeah, I think I'll go with Alisson and goal. I'd actually go with Jones at right back. Canate, Virgil, Robertson as back 4. Go with Gravenberch and McAllister as your 2 holding. Vertson at 10. Salah and Gakpo on the wings with Ekitike up front. I don't think you can run Soboslai into the ground. I think at some point, one of the midfielders that you have available to you, whether it's Soboslai, Jones, McAllister, Gravenberch, one of them has to miss out every week.
Well, what's our turnaround from this game until the next one? We have a few days off, don't we?
It's City next.
I know it's City next, but how many days do we have between those games?
It's a Sunday, so it's 8 days.
8 days.
Okay, so that's going to be our biggest break that we probably have going. So if he's gonna rotate, I doubt he's gonna rotate Soboslai.
But you're not rotating. All you're doing, all of them are going to play every single game. It's just going to be a case of who's going to do the 60 this week, who's coming off the bench with an hour or with half an hour to go.
It always seems to be Jones.
Someone is always going to have to do it.
It always seems to be Jones who's doing the half hours.
Yeah, well, in fairness, lately it has been.
Yeah.
But it's a case, look, worst case scenario, Canate isn't back. Jones isn't available. Gomez isn't available. Then you're going with Gravenberch, Endo, Virgil, and Kirkes, or as your back 4.
I think I'd throw Robertson in regardless of who's at right back, just because I think that it provides a little bit more leadership in that back line.
I get that, but the only reason I'd start Kirkes, if in that situation, is you have to have an outlet from one of your fullbacks. That's fair. I think the outlet that Endo can give you is sporadic. He can get up and down the pitch sometimes. Not all the time. Kirk has got an engine on him. He can just go up and down for days, like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going and going. So
it's just what his fitness is like, because the reason he got pulled in that Bournemouth game, as much as it was for his performance, was also because he was one that was in the red zone. And so, if you're in a situation, I know, but like,
it's
something that we have to consider. It's something we have to consider, where it's like, Robertson is not in the red zone. Robertson has fresh legs, and because we are so fragile in the back line, like play the player that has the fresh legs, and make sure that Kirkes is 100% before you throw him back in. In my opinion,
there's another option if he does want to go with a 4-4-2. You play Robertson at left back and Kirkes ahead of him.
Mm.
You know, and you can play left footers on the left side, right footers on the right side, and put Salah through the middle with Hugo. You know,
I just
what can you?
It's like I don't want to have too many square pegs in round holes or vice
but in
versa.
fairness, that's more square pegs and square holes because they're playing in natural positions on that side of the pitch. It's just that he's not coming as far back as he would do normally. You know, it's one of them. It's like when you look at what fit players he actually has, how much options does he really have to change everything or to change anything? I mean, when I said at the start what his lineup was for the first Newcastle game,
I think he's probably going to go with that.
It's going to be very similar. I mean, the truth is, it's going to be very similar. It's just going to be a case of, is it going to be, all things being equal, is it going to be Szoboszlai-Jones at right back, Kerkez or Robertson at left back? The rest of it kind of, if they're available,
Konate back?
Is Konate back? If Konate is back, then that probably, those 9 positions pick themselves.
Yeah.
And whatever's on the bench is on the bench. And you just got to hope that the sticking plaster lasts.
I don't have that much faith. Sam Tandy in the chat says Allison, Endo, Konate, VVD, Kerkez, Grabovic, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Gakpo, Ekitike, Salah. So very similar. We've got a few predictions here. So Oz Copite says 2-2, Salah and Rio. That would be a fun thing for Rio to say he got the double over Newcastle. Oshin says 2-2, Salah and Ekitike, Gordon and Visa for the Geordies. So happy we're all rooting for the draw again. Anthony Boylan says 4-2, Ekitike and Wirtz to score for us, and Newcastle to score 4 from 4 long throw-ins because we are an embarrassment and can't defend the ball being lobbed into the box. Some more positivity from the chat here. Let's change it up here. I'm going with Sam Tandy. He says 3-0 to Liverpool. Wirtz, Salah, Konate. I like that a lot more, Sam. Thank you so much for the optimism. Okay, so
there's
that's
one
the
there
housekeeping.
from.
Did I miss one? What's more?
No, this one here. It's a massive game for Eddie Howe. Just like Slotty's future is in doubt beyond this summer. I think more so for Eddie Howe because he's been there a lot longer.
Yeah, he feels like more like he's run the course of his project more than anything else. I feel like Slot has lost his way a little bit, but I feel like with Eddie Howe, he's had time. And he, I don't know if he's had the backing that he would want, but he's still got very good players there. He does have good players in that team. But you're right. I mean, definitely a massive game for them both. We shall see. Okay. Enough of the boring footballing business. Let's talk about the completely unrealistic, dreamlike.
2 minutes. I'll be back.
Okay. Kev's like, fuck this shit. Let's talk about
I think that's Richard Hughes. I'll be back. I'll be back. Speaking in the summer.
Kev Richard Hughes. That's sacrilege.
He's done a full Richard Hughes. I'll be back in the summer.
Oh my gosh. No, I'll tell him that you said that he was Richard Hughes.
I'll say it to his face. Don't worry.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, this portion of the show is basically dedicated to dreams, hopes, and probably crushed dreams to be real. Yeah, and fantasy. We are going to talk a little bit about what the fuck Liverpool are doing in this transfer window, or what they are not doing in this transfer window. It's going to come to no surprise that the general consensus from everyone out there in the world has said, there's really not that much that's going to happen. Liverpool have assessed their right back options, and they don't necessarily feel like there's anyone out there that's, priced in a way that would fit for right now. They have said, that they do not want to sign someone for, just a temporary fix, that they are only looking for long-term kind of players that can impact the team beyond this season. And that they don't want to make any sort of rash moves. But, that line that we all know and love and actually hate is, we are opportunistic, and if the opportunity arises, we will go for it. Now, Chris.
You also have to look for the opportunity, which I feel like we're finding reasons to rule things out. Oh, that's not an opportunity. Everything's an opportunity. It's what you're willing to compromise on. And it's all great having long-term, medium-term plans, but if your short-term future really bombs, like I think we saw yesterday, Liverpool apparently got £85 million just from the group stage, so they've got to get money from the last 16. So you're probably looking at 100 million comfortably. Just say even if Liverpool went out in the last 16, you ain't getting 100 million in the Europa League, so you're writing off close to 100 million there. So a nice plus away, are you going to be able to stomach all your summer plans? 100 million light, TV revenue light, and also, as much as Klopp used to say it, and look, it was a lovely soundbite that Klopp said, "Old man, just say it." If a player says they only want Champions League football, I put the phone down. Yeah, but it's in truth, a lot of players do. A lot of players, especially looking at English clubs, going, "Well, it's all right if you don't want it. There's another 5 who will." So, I just think it's blind arrogance and moronic to not look at things. And look, other clubs are looking at loan options. It doesn't have to be a permanent. But this line that's coming out now from Liverpool, which is, we've looked, there aren't many opportunities. Well, there don't tend to be many opportunities with 6 days to go in the window. This is something that should have been foreseen and sorted week 1 of Jan. So they can put whatever, they can use James Pearce to put his usual puff pieces out that they do, because that's what James Pearce is used for. But it's not washing.
Yeah, Kev, you didn't miss much except for Chris calling you Richard Hughes.
Well, you disappeared, so I thought you were coming back in the summer. I thought you were doing Richard Hughes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check my bank balance and I can reassure you that is not the case.
Look, Madge says here, there's being rash in the market, and then there's geriatric pace, and that very much is how it feels from a Liverpool perspective. I set you guys both the task. I also set myself this task of finding, a couple of potential options that would make sense long term. So not make sense in terms of a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, but make sense as a long-term signing for the club. So we're going to get to that at the end of this show.
Richard Hughes cut her off there. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing talking transfers here? Get her out.
We ain't having that."
Yeah, Richard Hughes cut you off then. Oh, look, she's come back. Go on then, Kev. What's your thoughts on transfers?
Look,
you mean both think they should be done, but they aren't.
Ash made this task earlier, and I thought, okay, fair enough. Let's actually have a serious look. Who's really available? That's a long-term player that you'd look at and you think, yeah, we can get them. We can get them now. They're at a price that the club are willing to pay, and the club, their parent club or their club that owns them, are willing to sell. There ain't many, if any, that I could seriously look at and think, yeah, I'd love that player, but that player is not moving in January, and it's very telling across the whole league. That you see, you're going into the last few days of the transfer window, and the biggest story today is Raheem Sterling is available on a free. There's fuck all happening. There's fuck all happening anywhere. The big business, I think, has already been done this window. It's been done by Man City, and it's 2 lads that they got in, Guehi and Semenyo. I don't think there's going to be another deal done between now and the end of the summer or the end of the January window that you are going to look at and think, fuck, we missed the boat out on this guy. I genuinely am looking at it. And I think
if Jeremy Jacquet moves to Chelsea, I will think that's a missed opportunity. Because he's supposed to be the next cab off the rank in terms of French center back defenders.
Yeah, he's played a couple of under-21 internationals. And this is his first real season in French football. And we've seen the level of what French football is this season when we absolutely tore Marseille to shreds. And they haven't even been able to get into the top 24 on what is a pretty bang average Champions League group phase. So, talking him up as being the next big thing and what have you. Chelsea have brought in Disasi. They've brought in a string of young French centre-backs that are all going to be the next Laurent Blanc and Marcel Desailly. And they keep bringing them in because none of them are playing for them. None of them are breaking into Chelsea's first team. They keep spending a fortune on all these young French centre backs, and they're pissing against the wind because none of them are what they say on paper. And yeah, they're talking silly money for this kid. You know, for someone who is genuinely, totally, completely unproven at a meaningful level of any kind of football. There's no. When you look at it, and we've talked about it to the nth degree about what Liverpool look for in the transfers, they look for a body of work. If they're going to spend meaningful money on a player, they look for a body of work in the player. There isn't that kid, that isn't there for this kid, and for the kind of money that Rennes are looking for, you want to be buying the sure thing. I think they gambled on Leone at £35 million on the strength of half a season of first team football, really. And injury aside, he looked the part when he was playing in Serie A, but Serie A is a level above the French league. And he was against.
Not like physicality wise, though. Like,
yeah, it is. It's not as fast. It's more technical. And the way the Premier League is going, I think you have to be more of a physical, technical player than you have to be a one-on-one defender. I
think, like, fitness-wise, I'd go to France, though, which I guess is the big question. Like, I don't know.
I think Lenny Yoro
center backs, though, so they don't need to be that fast.
Yeah, but Lenny Yoro is the one that stands out as the one that was going to be the next big thing. Went to United. And when you look at the money that United paid for Lenny Yoro, would you pay that money for him now, having seen him in the Premier League?
Well, that's why Liverpool walked away from the deal. They said that was too much money.
But how much are Rennes looking for this kid? I've seen figures anything from 43 million.
I've seen 60.
Up to 60.
Yeah, I've seen 60
that's Lenny Yoro money
floated around.
That's Lenny Yoro money. So it's like,
I'm not saying that we should buy him per se, but I do think that he might be a big one that could move this window.
But I was saying to Chris earlier on, like, today, the biggest story with 3 days left to go, 3 or 4 days left to go in the window, is that Raheem Sterling's available on a free. He's talking to 7 different clubs.
Well, there was the big story of Strand Larson, supposedly moving, and then Palace kind of walking away from that deal. Not
surprised. 50 million is a lot of money.
50 million is ridiculous. I think he has 1 goal this season. That's way too much money to pay for him. They agreed a deal for the Villa winger Guisan, I think is how you pronounce it. That has an obligation to buy. So
Villa paid something like 22, 23 million for him.
The obligation to buy is a £28 million obligation to buy that's triggered if certain conditions are met. That's the big news from today.
That's what I mean. There's not really a lot going on at all anywhere. I mean, that's what I said. Bar City getting 2 big deals over the line early. I don't think there's much happening across the league. Full stop. And it feels like if the Premier League clubs aren't spending money and that money isn't moving around the football market, nobody else is moving either. So that's where I think, I mean, if you're looking for, I said it last night, last night on Patreon, if you're looking for a short-term fix, I would definitely be looking at Leon Goretzka. And we wouldn't be the only ones. Apparently the move to Atletico is off. AC Milan are looking at him. But again, Spurs are linked with him strongly as well.
I don't think that we are going to buy anyone that is over 24 years old.
I don't think we're going to buy anyone. So
that too. But even in the summer, I don't think we're going to buy anyone that's over 24 years old.
But that wouldn't be a signing for the summer. That wouldn't be a signing for the next 3-5 years. That would be something for the next 12 to 18 months.
But I think that's what the club is trying to avoid. And I
don't get that.
Well, I'm just kind of, again.
Yeah, I know what.
This is not my perspective, but just trying to speak from the other side of the coin. I think Liverpool are very much of the mindset of, we're planning for 5 years rather than for the next 12 months. And I think that they have a 5-year plan. I think that, we saw the first phase of that plan come in during the summer. And I think that we saw, like, we are seeing right now them basically holding firm and saying we are going to keep our powder dry for next summer, where, at least reportedly, they have plans to kind of reinforce again. They know that the squad is aging out. They know there are contracts that need to be sorted. They know that, that they've just kind of started a massive turnover. It doesn't fill me with confidence that means that next season's going to be an additional kind of season of transition. But I do think that what they're going to be looking for in the summer are more kind of first team signings. I don't think they're looking for squad signings. I think they're looking to, replace a couple of key figures in the squad, maybe sell some players that we are not necessarily expecting them to sell, maybe like a Jones, a McAllister. I think there's a real possibility that Mo Salah goes in the summer window, especially with the Saudi kind of like splash that they're planning. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of money and a lot of players exchanging in and around the summer window. Cathal says here, not doing any business is gambling with Champions League football. I agree with you, but ultimately they are the ones that have to look at the squad and judge the squad in its entirety. And as much as it feels like, sometimes I feel like we're living on a different planet where, we're like, well, there's clearly all of these problems. Why can't you see it? Like, I'm sure they do see them. I'm sure they do see the problems, but, ultimately they're asking themselves, like, let's just say hypothetically, all they have is 20 million to spend this window. Just hypothetically, I'm just plucking that number out of the air. If they're looking around and they're like, well, what can we get for 20 million now? And will that improve the squad? Is it going to be a direct, is it going to be a starter? Or do we have someone in our squad already that's better than what we could get for 20 million? So is Szoboszlai at right back better than what we could potentially buy as a stopgap or a squad player for 20 million? Because ultimately, who is Arne Slot going to pick there? If he's not going to pick this 20 million pound player, yes, you can buy him for insurance purposes, but if he's not going to rotate him, he's just going to be another Chiesa. He's just going to be another Endo. He's just going to be another one of these players. So I guess that's just the flip side of the coin. It's not necessarily my perspective. But I think it's important just to kind of look at it. And they may be looking at sort of the landscape of the league as a whole. I think the Anfield Wrap did a really good job today talking about how, Arsenal in the last couple of, or especially the last window, looked to be buying for the here and now. The players they bought are very much here and now players. And yes, they will probably get them to the league, potentially. I mean, they are doing a good job of maybe slipping, but they're buying for the here and now. City potentially will be in a transition post Pep Guardiola, which will come at some point. Liverpool might be looking at this sort of in the grand sort of metascape and saying, look, we'll transition this year, we'll transition next year, but Arsenal's reign will come to an end. City's reign will come to an end, and our players will be prepped and ready. Our transition seasons will be done maybe 2 years from now. And I know that as fans, we don't like to hear that, but again, it's just devil's advocate.
It's how they look at it. No, it's how they look at it.
It's how they look at it. I mean, playing devil's advocate, you can flip the other going, it's all great having a 5-year plan, but you've also got to see what's in front of your face. So, this team's going to peak in 4 years' time. Okay, 4 years' time when it's no Van Dijk, no Salah, and we're going to replace players, which, let's be honest, we've not been very good with contracts and replacing players. Who's to say, that all looks right on paper. Arsenal don't dip. Arsenal keep adding. Arsenal keep going on because it could happen. The bit I
don't know if they have the headroom to. They're going to have to sell quite a bit of players.
Yeah, but I think there are players they'll be happy to sell. Ben White's, Jesus and people like that, who they'll get decent money for, and they're homegrown, which then allows them then just to do the city trick, especially with Ben White. Just put the money straight back in, pure profit, go big on someone else. They're probably in that stage now where
that's
actually.
Not true at all.
Why not?
No, I'm just looking at on.
Yeah, well, that's why I threw it up. And look, Ozcopet, you're allowed to have an opinion here, but I disagree with most of our signings this year are for the here and now. We just
they're all in 24,
brought loads of them. I don't think any of those signings are actually. But he's a long-term deal. Yeah, he's still a long-term deal. I think ideally they would have liked him to hit here and now, but they knew that this wasn't going to be his season. They knew this was going to be a recovery season for Isak. Get him back up to fitness. Hope he's ready next year Florian Wirtz, he's 22. There are, Ekitike is 23. Kirkes, 22. All of these players are 5-year plan, if not longer players. Yeah, Frimpong is, I think he's just a little bit older, around 24-ish.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's actually the one who's over 24. The rest are all...
They're all quite young.
They're nowhere near the peak, so that is the 5-year plan. I get that, but I just think mine's more of the... You've got to fill the holes in your gap. Otherwise, listen, unless part of a 5-year plan you've built in a fuck-up year where you go, listen, in this 5-year plan, there could be 1 year we're out of the Champions League. We'll have accounted for that.
There might be.
I fucking
and they
doubt
might kind of view it as an opportunity. I mean, again, that's a really fucked up way of looking at it. And I don't want anyone to take this and clip this up and say, oh, look at this Liverpool fan saying this. But there may be a scenario, Kev, you talked about Aston Villa in the Europa League, being able to really let some of their young players shine, try things, find some systems, really gel together in a way that, perhaps platforms them to do really well in the Premier League, for example, allows them to rotate a little bit differently. I don't want to be in the Europa League, but they might look at it. They might have a different view on it. They might have a buffer in place to absorb the loss of revenue if, God forbid, this happens. And they might find, okay, if it is going to be another transition year, maybe that's a place where we can really kind of use it as a test lab or something. I don't know, just hypothetically.
Before the window opened, I just did a quick. Well, it wasn't a quick. I spent a bit of time on it, just looking through what Liverpool's headroom kind of is at the minute. If Liverpool wanted to go and spend 150, 200 million in this window, there's no problem with it. There really isn't. Money isn't the object for Liverpool. Money isn't a problem. Money isn't an issue for Liverpool at the minute.
It is for long-term planning.
No, not really. No, it isn't, because you got to look at where, and someone said it earlier in the chat as a piss take, net spend FC. Our net spend over the last 5 years is phenomenal. We're still one of the best run clubs in the world. And yes, our wage bill was high last season, but our wage bill isn't organically high. Our wage bill was high last season because it was a league winning season and the bonuses were through the roof. If they're not achieving Champions League football, the wage bill is not anywhere near as high. The running cost of the club isn't anywhere near as high. And if you think that a club of Liverpool size will have a problem attracting players, just catch yourself on a small bit. It's not fucking Championship Manager or anything like that. Liverpool won't have a problem signing a player. But the one thing that they will have a problem with is the way they're going about this mentality of small squads.
I agree with that 100%. I think the small squad needs to go.
It
doesn't have to go enormously.
No, it doesn't. But the way I said this I remember saying this a long time ago, and I've been it's going to come to fruition this summer because of the volume. And it's something that Virgil van Dijk said when they were talking, when the football calendar was really high up in discussions. The volume of football that's being asked of these players between Premier League, Europe, FA Cup, League Cup, Nations League, qualifiers, tournaments every 2 years, under 21 tournaments, the volume of football that's coming down the line, down the pipeline, is unsustainable. You cannot go in. If you want to be competitive in all competitions, you have to have a full 25 to 30 man squad. And that has to be stacked. You look at Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal to an extent, and you look at how they've filled their squad out with 25, 30, 35, 40 million pound players. And they've stacked it out, but it's taken Arsenal a good few years to be able to do that, to fill that squad out, that they can carry the amount of injuries that they're carrying, and it not really hit them. If this had happened, if their injuries that Arsenal have suffered this season happened to them 2-3 years ago, they'd be finished, they'd be gone.
Well, that's precisely why they bought the way they did, because they were finished in the past.
Exactly.
And they knew that was their kryptonite.
We have to learn from this season that you cannot go into future campaigns with the way the football is going. FIFA and UEFA are not going to stop.
No,
this
and we
Club
currently
World Cup
have
nonsense.
We currently have the least rotation of any squad in the Premier League, except for Everton. And Everton's not in any other competition.
That's what I mean. I didn't even mention this Club World Cup bullshit. So
that's
and exactly that. Those competitions aren't going away.
You know, just a whole season basically pissed away.
The frustration with the whole small squad thing is this isn't rock. This isn't new. As in, Klopp said he wanted a small squad and learned very quickly not to have it. Yeah. Guess what? Edward was there when this happened first time round, so he knows it. And it'll not be funny. The man says, "Oh, I like a small squad." There is an element of Richard Hughes and have to go to slot going, yeah, but ultimately you're the head coach. You report to us. We've got experience with
a league wants a small squad.
Well, he keeps coming out with this policy. He wants a small squad.
Do you believe it?
I think that he
then
wants...
why say it?
Because I think he's lying through his fucking teeth protecting these bosses.
I don't 100% agree. I think that he wants a modest squad, and I think that he backs, prior to this season, I think he backs his fitness guys. Because if you go back through last season, and then you go back to Feyenoord, that was their thing. They were the fitness guys. They were known as the fittest side in the Dutch league, and they were known for almost like miraculously keeping their players fit. And look, you can do that in the Dutch league. I honestly, I think that he's learning on the job every single season that he's here. He's learning how physically demanding this is, how you can't rest anyone for any sort of Premier League teams, that you need, there's no game that you can take 4 or 5 players out and put on a second string. Like, you need to have top level players to come in and rotate. You can't have a drop off there. Like, I've said so many times that Curtis Jones is a squad player. Trainioni, no disrespect to him, is not a squad player. He's a prospect. So you can't include him in your squad list in terms of like, yes, I'm truly going to rotate him as one of my 23-man squad.
I think that's the frustration with some of the squad players is, whether you like them, rate them, we can have our debates on them, but you have agreed to have Endos, Chiesas in your squad.
What makes you think Arne Slot's agreed to anything?
Well, he's agreed. Well,
he's the head coach.
So he has no responsibility.
No, I don't think he has any responsibility or input into signing players.
But his responsibility is to use what he has,
and he hasn't used what he has.
And he hasn't been. Well, I don't think he's used everything he's been given. So that's why
he hasn't, because he doesn't believe he has enough.
He has to wear that.
No, he can quit. That's his options. He can quit.
Yeah,
that's his options. He can walk away and say, "Look, these guys haven't." Richard Hughes has never run a club in the Champions League before. He hasn't a clue what he's doing. He's making my job impossible. I'm going to leave. Who's going to hire him? Nobody. He's got to fucking put up with what he's got.
Yeah, but he is. To me, my criticism of the manager is, we can criticize the club for not giving him enough. It's depth, and I think that's fair. That's not on him. But I don't think he's made his own life easy. Where, things like, and we said it against Bournemouth. I had to take Kirkus off because he's red zone. You got a fucking left back on the bench who's a Champions League winner and a 2-time Premier League winner who isn't finished, and you didn't fucking play him.
Yeah, he doesn't escape criticism from me for what he's doing with.
That's my frustration
with what he's got. But I honestly 100% believe if he had control over what players come in and out, he'd have binned Ramsey off, he'd have binned Chiesa off, he'd have binned Endo off, and he'd have probably chopped Trey and Rio out on loan and brought in 5 players that he wants. But that's why I look at that squad. When you look at what he's not using, and he's overusing what's the other players, it's because it's job preservation.
Yeah, possibly.
It has to be. There's no other rational explanation for it.
But I can't
because if he believed they're good enough, because he sees them every day, we don't. He sees them around the club, we don't. So it's like he's not a newbie. He's been around football all his life. He knows players. And he knows what he wants to try to do.
I would. You'll never hear it. I'd love to know the conversation they have internally.
Yeah.
Where he says because he'd be like, "Oh, that's all fine." Is it? Because you're not saying that, and I've seen people say, "Oh, Morton was a good squad player, but Slot didn't want to use him." Morton looks a good squad player, but the reason he looks a good squad player now is because guess what?
He's playing in a different league,
week in, week out. He's also playing in the French league, which we've all said is pretty average. That doesn't mean I'm not disparaging Morton, but the reason Morton looks good now is he's playing regularly.
It's the same reason that Kwanzaa looks exceptional. It's the same reason that Diaz looks exceptional. Like, there are players that are going to leagues that are a step down.
Yeah, but if we kept Morton, I guarantee if we'd have kept Morton and used him, Logan's been there going, why are we keeping him? He's not good enough. He's just average.
They would have sold someone else. They would have sold Nioni. Like, the fact of the matter is they sold all of these players because they needed to fund their rebuild.
Yeah.
There is headroom. I mean, I just threw in, it's about 153 million pounds for the person that wanted the exact number. That's roughly, so basically you have 105 million pounds of allowable loss. And then you have Liverpool have a positive PSR margin of about 48 million. So when you combine those two figures, that's where you get that kind of.
It's actually it's 200 because
we're in up to 200 million, but the number that I've seen that's precise is that 153 million. Okay. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make.
It dispels the myth that we don't have the money. It's a policy decision.
Well, one thing I want to say is that. Like, we have to remember, as much as Slot is learning on the job, as much as Richard Hughes is learning on the job, as much as, almost Michael Edwards is learning on the job, this whole setup that we've created at Liverpool is brand new. This idea of separation of head coach and, this, football, director of football, rather, along with this, secondary CEO of football under Michael Edwards. This pyramid is brand new. When Klopp was in charge, he was the manager. He had ultimate control, really toward the end, at least he had ultimate control. He gained that control over time. He took some of that control by force away from Michael Edwards and some of the other people that worked around him. It's one of the reasons that Michael Edwards decided to depart in the way that he did, is because they were butting heads. But look, this structure is brand new for Liverpool. We've seen it at Chelsea. We've seen it implemented quite recently at Manchester United. We've seen it implemented at a few clubs. But this isn't something that's tried and tested at Liverpool. So this idea that you have a head coach that doesn't really have a say in signings or maybe has a seat at the table but doesn't have ultimate jurisdiction there, that's new. And we will see. We are literally watching with our eyes, basically a test tube experiment of whether or not this will work for Liverpool.
I mean, I've seen a few times say, "Was Xavi Alonso just come in as a head coach?" Well, that's what he's been at his last two jobs.
That's exactly what he did at his last two jobs.
Literally, quick a 2-second Google. What was Xavi Alonso's job title at Leverkusen? Head coach.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing.
No, but I was going to say, head coach is this whole head coach thing. This has been in place in Europe for fucking decades. This is not new. It's
new in England.
It's new in England, but it's not. So for someone like a Xavi Alonso, and trust you Klopp, the others, coming under as a head coach where you have a director of football, sport director who does all the signings, that's quite normal.
Well, we've always had a director of football. I'm not saying this is a novel idea. I'm just saying for Liverpool. It's a change.
For English clubs, it's quite a cultural change because we're not used to it. We're used to the manager being a Ferguson or being a.
It's not even the cultural change. I think there's going to be some teething problems where it comes to the people up top thinking they know best, and then realizing that the coach at ground level actually does need a say of some sort, and maybe in the future that power dynamic needs to switch, because I think what happened at the beginning of this season, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might just be talking out of my ass here, but basically, I think that Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards looked at the squad and said, this is fine, in a way that if Slot was to tell you the honest truth, he would probably say, no, I actually don't think it's that deep, because I'm not going to play Endo. I'm not going to play Chiesa. I don't think Rio's ready to start. I don't think that Ramsey's a real option. I don't think that Nioni's going to get any minutes. And I don't think that and I need wingers, for example. Yeah. I think he probably would have been okay with our center back options because no one could have foreseen what happened to Leone. But I think you're seeing a disconnect there between the people that are higher up looking at kind of names on a spreadsheet versus what the coach is actually willing to play.
That's
So
it, exactly. I think he'd have been happy. I just think he'd have been happy with his back four and his 4 backups to his back four.
Yeah,
so he was happy with his 3 keepers. I'd say he was happy enough with his central midfield options, even if you included it. I think he would have liked.
I think the wingers is the biggest spot where I can say that was a decision that didn't come from Hugh or didn't come from Slot.
I think he would have liked to have moved Endo on and maybe brought in somebody who's a little bit more dynamic than Endo to put pressure on Gravenberch and McAllister. I think ideally he would have liked to do that. Definitely replacing Luis Diaz with somebody who can push Cody Gakpo. But I think it was Chris said it last night. Last season, Cody Gakpo put up his best season in terms of goals and assists for the club. And at his age, you were expecting him to kick on again. And that hasn't happened. But he's not the only one who has.
Because there is a myth going on. There is a myth going on. He barely started, it's all Diaz. Cody Gakpo and Diaz played very similar number of games. Different. Well, Diaz meant central because Jota had his lung injury, and quite frankly, Nunez was an absolute disaster last season. That was the reason. But he was playing regularly. He was playing regularly. Yeah. He's just completely off form. But the benefit we had was if he did have a dip last year, you had a Diaz to bring in.
It's always been purple patchy.
We don't have that.
I just want to go back to what Ashley was talking about with the 150 million headroom. Yeah. It's not 150 million that you can go out and spend on one player. If you're going to sign a player for 5-year contracts and you have 150 million to spend, that is, you could go out and buy 4 players and spend 15 million per year on those players over a 5-year contract. That's 5 15s is 75 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could go out and buy 5 75 million pound players and still be under that PSR threshold.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you're going to amortize all of those things.
Exactly.
Like 5 years is the new limit.
It's because it's genuinely, it's the length of the contract. So it would still keep us within where we need to be.
There's too many keep saying 5 years we spent a billion, we brought in 500 million. It's 500, net spends 500 divided by 5. That's not how it works.
No.
And look, you don't have to be a football finance expert. None of us are.
No.
But there's plenty of articles which take about 20 minutes reading that just say this is how it works out. So again, there's no money's there. It's a policy decision.
Yeah, but it's not Football Manager either.
No, and the other thing that you have to look at. The other thing you have to look at how Man City are able to do what they're doing in recent years is they're selling Oscar Bob, they're selling McAtee, they're selling
Rodgers,
they're selling Foden. Sorry,
they're selling Foden.
No, not Foden, but Palmer. You know what I mean?
No, I'm just kidding.
They're selling very good academy players.
They're selling very good academy players for pure profit, so that they can use that money then to rebuild their squad. All right.
Well, that's part of the reason why they're spending money on the academy, which no one wants to hear. But that's part of the reason why Liverpool is.
That's no different to why Liverpool sold who they sold in the summer, for the exact same principle.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Mortons of this world, the Harvey Elliott.
Tyler Morton, Ben Doak, Harvey Elliott.
All of these players come under the same umbrella, and it will allow us, if we miss out on the Champions League for a season, it will still allow us to be able to invest in a way that we want to invest. So, as much as it would be a sackable offence for Arne Slot and Richard Hughes to miss out on the Champions League, it wouldn't be a death knell in the club's rebuilding
I don't even
strategy.
know if they would sack them, honestly. The more that I read, the more that I see,
I'm the same.
The more that I hear.
I'm the same as you.
I don't think they'd sack Hughes. I think the managers.
I don't even know if they'll. This is all
to
hypothetical.
Me, the head coach will be a summer discussion because in the summer they either have to extend his contract, because I think any head coach, manager, whatever title you want to use, with a year left, sometimes can have an influence on whether players come or not, and that generally is a thing. So I think either extend him or then they look to move him on. I think that will be the discussion that happens in the summer. Because I'll be honest, if they were gonna, as much as it frustrates us at times, I think if Slot was to leave during the season, I think that would have already happened. there were footballing opportunities, you would say, for someone to do that.
All right, I'm just going to throw this comment up here from Anthony Boylan. He says, the academy is a waste of money. Jones is the only first-team player from our academy. Bradley may be passable if he wasn't crocked. So I think that you need to look at the academy as much more than a feeder for the first team. Much more than a feeder for the first team. Look, in an ideal world, you will have a player that breaks through like a Trent Alexander-Arnold or a Jones or a Bradley, but the academy is your bread and butter for what you're bringing in terms of pure profit. We need our academy to be doing well. That is why they are investing heavily in the academy right now, because they believe, and I quote, that they have just seen the end of a golden age of academy players coming through the Liverpool system. And so the reason they're bringing in 3 different center backs from the age of 17 to 19 is because they know that they need to reinforce that area. And they will continue to bring in players because they know that that is the way that they can compete with these big oil state places. That's also partially the reason they're interested in possibly buying another club, so that they can link together the academy and create this pipeline in the same way that Chelsea has. Discount the academy at your own peril. It's really up to you if you would like to or not. But for me, that is where, the bread and the butter of this football club comes from.
You hope you get a gem. You hope you get a Michael Owen, a Robbie Fowler, a Stephen Gerrard, Jamie Carragher. You hope you get.
Kelleher's a great one. We always forget about him.
You hope you get one of those every few years, every 5 years, if you're lucky. You look down the line. Saka at Arsenal, Chelsea. Who would you say is an academy starlet at Chelsea that's going to be? Reece James, I suppose, is probably the one that you'd look at and say, he's the one that came through.
He was an academy player at Chelsea.
And left.
Yeah.
I'm on about who comes through and who stays there.
Oh, who stayed there? Okay.
Lewis Skelly's probably one now.
What's his face that moved over to Manchester United? Can't think of his name. Midfielder, doesn't really play because he was injured. They were all upset when he moved. What's his name? Starts with an M. Help me out here. No, he went from Chelsea. Was like the Chelsea star boy. Then got sold to Manchester United. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, Mount.
Yes, thank you. He was the one that was like their star boy, and then they sold him. And Gallagher was another one.
But and look at what this, and with the money that they sold him for, they were able to go bananas.
Yep.
And that's why they do it.
That's what Liverpool want to do.
Yeah, the academy is there as basically that's your bank. The academy is your bank, and you really hope that it will save you 50, 60, 70 million on a position. But the truth of the matter is, if it is, and you can sell a 50, 60, 70 million pound player out of your academy, you can then turn that into, as I said earlier, 3 or 4 50 million pound players over the length of those players' contracts for the same kind of money. That's the kind of headroom it gives you. So it's like, I think we've underutilized and underinvested in our academy for a long time. I think it was probably the one thing that Manchester City did very early on. It might have been Mancini who came in and was a big advocate of it. And when they brought in your man Barada and Pep Guardiola's man came in the year before him, that's when they went ham on looking to invest in their academy, and they reaped the benefits of it because they use that money to be able to fund what they do. So it's the same as Chelsea. Chelsea are stacking their club with players to flip, and it's an ugly side of the football business that nobody likes to look at, but it's the naked truth of the football business that you are moving players around and moving them around like deck chairs of the Titanic to try to create bubbles of investment that you can go and invest in your first team. That's what it's there for. The academy is there to create investment for your first team.
It's something that they're actively trying to improve. Yeah. So, Daniel C says here, our academy is shite out of all the big 5 or 6 clubs, it has to be the worst. I don't know if that's true. I think
it depends.
We're definitely below Chelsea. We're definitely below
You
City.
You look for me at the amount of academy players that we've let go who have gone. I mean, Harry Wilson has gone on to have a decent career. Ryan Brewster, big flop.
But we got big money from.
Yeah,
Sterling is a good example of someone that went off.
Example.
Yeah,
you know, Kelleher's a really good example of someone.
I don't think it's. That's why I said I don't think it's as good as it could have been, and we have to get better at it. I whenever I see an academy, Tyler Morton, for example, I pray to God he does well. You know,
well, you want them to do well. Like, I know that it's we look at them and we're like, oh, I wish we had them, but you do want them to do well because that's an advertisement for your academy.
Because the next time we go to sell James McConnell, we can point to say, look at what Tyler Morton is doing here. James McConnell can do that for your club. We want 20 million for it.
Yeah. You know? I mean, and look, we've been updating the academy a lot recently. We've put in a lot of money into the academy. The AXA has changed. Avo throws in here. We've just finished a big upgrade at the complex.
I think there's another 20 million investment coming into the academy.
You know, they've linked together the academy and the structure where the first team lives, so that there's a lot more integration there, so that they can kind of see each other and feel like there's a pathway there in. They are doing their best. I think this is one of those things where
it takes time.
It takes time, and kind of like Manchester United, where they saw sort of like a marketing opportunity before anyone else did that allowed them to grow. I think that we are sort of playing catch up with the academy system, where, you know, Chelsea and Manchester City saw an opportunity that was going to allow them to grow, and we are catching up, but we were not the first ones there. We were not the first ones to kind of capitalize on this, but we are noticing it and we are trying our best. And, you know, look, it's hard. We're not in London. We can't, you know, and I say I obviously don't even live in the UK, but Liverpool, you know, is not London, and it is harder to bring players in. But I think this is a good conversation.
If you look at the summer, we sold 8 players, 6 are academy products. So 6 academy products helped fund the summer. Yes, it hasn't gone as well as we'd have hoped, but Trent, Kelleher, Nat Phillips, Kwanzaa, Morton, Ben Doak, they all helped fund this. And when I'm looking at LFC transfer history, we're talking 1 for 18 million, 1 for 35 million, 1 for 13. You know, Ben Doak went for 25 million.
And that was a stick we used to beat Michael Edwards with, was that he didn't sell those academy players at the right time.
Wilson's a good example. Yeah, Wilson's done well at Fulham, but we did shows, Kev and I, Wilson should have been sold 18 months before he was sold.
Bajcetic could have been sold for a lot of money when he had that breakout season. There were bids of £35 million for Bajcetic. And
Nico Williams is another good example.
He's actually one that's done really well. He's
done really well.
Wilson. Yeah.
And literally he had about 4 appearances for Liverpool in the title winning season near the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then we just let him go to Forest. To be fair to him, he's had a great career. He's done really well at Forest. He's really got up levels.
I'd take him back.
I was actually messing about. You know, I'd take it. If Robertson went, I would have taken him back. Then I looked at it. He signed an extension at the start of 2025. He's contracted as a Forest now up until 2030.
Yeah, Dylan and I were messaging about him a while ago. He was like, Dylan asked for give me your unpopular opinion, or like your whatever rogue shout, and he was the one that I had mentioned then. We're on the same page mentally. Speaking of signings, again, I asked you guys for homework, which I don't normally do. I asked you guys for just 2 or 3 just shout in the dark shouts for Liverpool, and we're going to finish the show on this because we've kind of gone over our allocated hour. If there's anyone in the chat that wants to participate in this fun little game, the rules are simply that it has to be a feasible transfer that, you know, is not 80 million to 100 million pounds. Who do you think that Liverpool could feasibly get to fix some of our problems in the last, I guess, 3 days of the window that we're in now? So who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go with it because I can only.
All right, Kev, you go.
If
anyone wants to participate in the chat, throw your suggestions in now. We will read them out.
It will be Cresswell at Toulouse.
Okay, Charlie Cresswell.
Yeah, he'd be the only one that I could look at.
23 years old, born in Preston.
Yeah, he's obviously homegrown. He is experienced to a point where he has a good under-21 career with England, where he won part of the side who won the Euros. Went to France because he wanted to play. He wanted to play first-team football.
Came from Leeds.
Yeah, he wouldn't cost the earth.
About 20 million is
I'd say 20 million will get him. But saying that, would he be in and around if you were to let Joe Gomez leave the club in the summer? Would Cresswell be happy being a fourth choice? Potentially fourth or third choice centre back at Liverpool? Maybe he would.
Well, you've got Leone coming back from
that's
injury,
what I mean.
So there's no guarantee that he's going to be your third choice.
This is the
You've
thing.
Got Konate leaving.
Yeah, Leone won't be available until the end of this year. So he's not going to be available at the start of the season. You'll be looking to see him by December. So it's a case of we're going to be bringing in two centre backs in the summer, irrespective of whatever we do in this window. But I wouldn't I'd take a punt on him, because the worst case scenario is you bring him in, you keep him for 18 months, and then you sell him when he's 25 or 6. He'll have had a year and a half at Liverpool, played probably some minutes, hopefully looked half decent, and we'll get our money back. And he's fixed a short-term problem, and it won't break the bank. But when I went really looking to see what was available right now and what was realistic, it's a very, very short list. There isn't as much out there as what you think there is.
I mean, you have to kind of go outside of the box. I mean, one thing to say about Cresswell is that Brighton are very interested in signing him, and usually if Brighton are interested in signing someone, that's a very good indication that it's someone that you want to look at. So they were trying to recruit him. They sent the 24 million euro proposal this month, and that was turned down. So 24 million euros was turned down.
So that's about 20 million pounds.
That was Brighton's bid. So they are serious. Toulouse does not want to lose him. But I think that if you maybe sweeten that deal a little bit, they might be interested. Okay, so we have Charlie Cresswell as our submission. I'm going to read off a few in here in the chat. Senesi from Bournemouth is a shout for someone that's a little bit more like a Matip. He's 29 years old. He's out of contract at the end of this year. The only issue there is that Bournemouth are short in quite a few areas. Do they want to let another player go? But he will be leaving on a free. So, there is a situation there where if you put a sizable bid on the table, I think he's someone that could do a Matip-esque role. I think he's very serviceable. And he's from the Premier League. There wouldn't be any sort of coming up to speed for him. Chris, your turn.
I'll be honest, I was like Kev, there weren't many options. I mean, we did talk about one of these last night, which was, do you look at the Marseille squad and look at the centre-back, is it Agard? He used to be at West Ham. Short-term deal. He might be an option. Or one you mentioned to us.
Don't steal my answer.
No, different one.
Okay.
Don't get aggressive.
Yeah, well,
Casper, the other one was who's been linked to Norwich, the striker at Bodø Glimt. Casper Hawk, he's 25. He's probably going to be under 10 million. He's not going to set the world alight, but he could be a little bit of a Minamino style one where he's someone to throw on for the last 15, 20 minutes. He's
got 42 goals and 80 something, 42 goals and 80 something appearances. I don't remember off the top of my head.
As much as Bodø Glimt are happy that they're in the Champions League playoffs, they're ultimately they are a selling club. So if you put 10, 12 million on the table for him, he'll go. And look, he is one who could just be a Minamino. He just gets you over. And again, this is the thing which I don't get with Richard Hughes and the club is like, we don't look for short or medium term. But guess what? You could probably flip him in the summer or flip him next summer. Probably get your money back. And he's just an option. Problem is he's not homegrown. That's why Kev's is probably the only realistic option because of the homegrown issue. Unless you're going to unregister someone. I don't see Sterling coming. Although,
no.
Can you imagine a shitstorm if he came back? But he's homegrown, he's free, But they're the only two I can think of. Anything else, I think with this late in the winter, it requires too much work in terms of You're going to have to let someone go. You're going to have to bring someone in.
Well, it's easy to deregister Ramsey.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's the one option. If you want to bring in more, I mean, obviously Liverpool probably need 2, but yeah, you deregister Ramsey.
Don't get greedy, Chris. Don't get greedy.
But they probably do need 2.
Yeah, I mean, I threw that news in because Norwich actually put in a bid for $8 million for that Bodo Glimt striker. They got that turned down. I think now that they have progressed against all odds, really, getting through City and Atletico Madrid was, I don't think, on the cards for them. But I don't think they're going to be selling him, and at least until the summer. So I had 2. Actually, I kind of went down the center back route and also down the right back route. And the first one that came to mind after a little bit of research was Archimpong from Chelsea. And look, do I think that Chelsea are going to sell to us? No, I don't. But if I could pick someone that was young, homegrown, could cover left back, right back, center back, I would pick Archimpong. They just got him last year. I think they paid, I don't remember off the top of my head. I had the number and it's gone. But I think they'd be looking for roughly around 35 to 45 million-ish for this kid. They have really high hopes for him. At least Rossignol has high hopes for him. He was out of Maresca's plans. But like I said, he's 19 years old. He's homegrown. He's gone through their academy an academy. And he can cover right back, left back, and both center back roles. And they really, like, from what I've seen in terms of scouting reports, he's very much the sky is the limit. He's tall. He's 6'2", very, very aerially aggressive. Very, very strong on aerial duels. So he would be my first choice. But again, he would be a significant outlay. He would be someone for the future, but he could be your Joe Gomez. He could be your, I'm going to turn you into a jack of all trades. He's also good at playing in defensive midfield. So if you wanted to, for example, or had to move Gravenberch to a certain position or move Endo to a certain position, he could also fill in at defensive midfield. So he feels very much like a Swiss Army knife. Chelsea were entertaining bids for him early in the window. Palace sent a bid in for him. They were looking for a loan with a potential obligation to buy. Since there has been a change in management, that has kind of been stepped away from a little bit. My initial thought was, Chelsea of old would not sell their young players, but Chelsea of new will. And if you were to put down a serious offer for that, I think that they would entertain it.
What would you call a serious offer for him?
I think 40 million pounds would probably get that.
So,
I think
like a Leone style level.
Yeah. I think that they, the market value for him is around 35. But yeah, that's the one that off the top of my head I would go for if you want to kind of dive into him a little bit more. He was not playing. I think ideally he wants to be a center back. And I think if Chelsea were to bring in, let's say, a Jeremy Jacquet or however you pronounce his last name, he would move down the pecking order significantly. He's not going to get in at right back right now in front of Reece James. But he is apparently looking for game time.
He'd definitely get a game for us at right back.
Well, I definitely think he would. And I think that the idea of him being able to be versatile across all of the back line is exactly what we need right now. It's exactly what we need. And he's 19 years old. He's very, very moldable. I think he could be the next Joe Gomez. Look, I had Charlie Cresswell on my list as well. And then I kind of did a deep, deep dive of who Toulouse was looking at next if Charlie Cresswell was to go. And the name that came up was Charlie Hughes. And I don't know very much about him, but he's from Hull. Again, English, 22 years old. He was born in Wigan. Can play center back on either side. He is considered sort of the heir apparent to Charlie Cresswell in the sort of French circle. Specifically, Toulouse are looking at him if Charlie Cresswell leaves. So they are kind of looking at him as a combative player. He's known for his ball playing. And he's also known for his leadership qualities. He joined Hull from Wigan Athletic in 2024, and he was their captain at a very young age, which is something that we look for. We look for captain leadership abilities. He also represented England at U20 level. He's 6'1", very, very strong in the air, which is something that I was looking for specifically because I think that's something that we need to bolster our back. Very, very good passing range and comfortable bringing the ball out of defense. He was developed at the Manchester City and Liverpool academies, so he's someone that we would be familiar with, which is why his name sort of popped out to me. He's featured in 90% of all games for Hull in 2025. Has a very strong passing accuracy and high defensive contributions, blocks, and interceptions. And he's valued around 5 million euros. So he would be your bargain basement option. Someone that the academy would know well, someone that the club would probably know well, someone that has like a pedigree of being brought up in both academy systems. And again, 22 years old, would be homegrown. Again, just a potential option. That's very much a totally left field option.
But he's also, and a few have said this in the chat in the past, is why aren't we going for the players before they go to Brighton?
Well, that's kind of why I was bringing up Charlie Cresswell, and why I'm bringing up Charlie Hughes, where it's like, if you are going to be smart, if you are going to be opportunistic, if you do have plans in the summer, big plans, you have your money earmarked, this could be someone that, you know, again, it's an insurance policy. Do you think that he's going to get a ton of minutes? Maybe not. But affordability at this point is part of my criteria.
I think you've got to look at it as well. And we're fairly fucking snobbish in clubs, fans in the Premier League, especially at the top end, are very snobbish when it comes to players in the Championship. If you're a centre-back in the Championship, you're playing a lot of football. You know, week in, week out. And as you said, he's played
90% of all games.
90% of all games, which means he's probably not played in their cup games. So I'd imagine
he's in their starting 11, 90% of all games. Exactly. He's played 91% of all minutes.
Exactly. So he's robust.
31 career appearances in total.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be robust. He's young, enthusiastic. And that's a fair bit of experience in the Championship. You know, I mean, it's fair to argue that the level of football in the Championship is getting better.
Well, you see it with whether it's Leeds or Sunderland or Burnley. I mean, Burnley's probably the exception to the rule, but that's kind of the way that this league is going. It's toward that physicality. You know, exactly. And we've done business with Hull before. I think, is that where Kumas is going?
It didn't work out too badly, did it?
I know, but isn't that where Kumas is going? Is it Hull?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think he might be going to Hull. And then obviously it didn't work out badly with Robertson. So, you know, again, coming back to what is Hughes's bread and butter, it's finding hidden gems. And I'm not saying he's necessarily the hidden gem. But again, if you're trying to kind of take this 2 steps back from buying the 60 million pound defender.
Yeah.
And you want to
make
I would argue that
defender.
You do want to make the 60 million pound defender. Thor says Charlie Hughes, he's the most famous person from Wigan since the British Bulldog. That's fantastic. I'm going to throw that up there. Look, he's probably like, I'm not advocating him saying he's the best player in the entire world, but I think that what we do have is space in our squad to, like Brighton, we always talk about how we don't have space in our squad to take maybe a project or take a punt. We always say we don't have game time to take a punt for someone like this. Well, we do right now. We do have game time. Yeah. If you're going to take a punt, now would be the time to take a punt. I don't know if you want to bring in someone from South America. I'm not Keith. I don't know those names. But if you want to bring in someone that is kind of a rogue shout, again, you know, you see them taking risks with a Chiesa, you know, with the potential of flipping him. 5 million euros is not a lot in the grand scheme of things for the piggy bank that is Liverpool. They could flip that player.
To play,
I don't know. It's just a rogue shout.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, because there's 2 ways to look at it. We have gone down that route before. Sometimes it works. Harvey Elliott in general has did all right for us. I know he hasn't done great this season, but he was low risk price wise. But then you do get your man who's now at Brentford, Carvalho, who was low fee, just did not
It's
work.
also just lightweight.
Yeah, but you still
Like,
made you still
You
made
still
You
made-
made a profit on him, so
He
it
made a
doesn't
profit.
even
Yeah.
matter.
Financially, he worked, but as a
Sepp van der Berg. You know,
Yeah.
another one.
that's what I mean. So he could be one of them. But that's the risk and reward you take.
Yeah.
And this is sometimes why the likes of a Liverpool, Man United, a Chelsea don't always go for these. Allow Brighton to do almost like allow them to make the mistakes on Brighton, Portsmouth's time, and Palace's time, and then we take them when they're a bit more ready made. Like Alaguehi.
But isn't
he's
that
done all
supposed to be Slot's thing?
Well, yeah, it's definitely there's two ways of going with it. Sometimes it can work for you, but you've got to be willing to accept. You know, you take this young kid and he goes, "Oh, great, he's brilliant," but then he costs you the game against City because he makes a mistake. That's just the look you have to take with it. So
Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
why that's why you can see the pros and cons why you do and don't do it. In the situation we're in, I can't see it hurting because
I think it's the kind of risk you can take if you're trying to get into the Champions League places.
Yeah,
it's not the risk you can take if you're trying to win a title.
Correct.
You know,
we're not,
so exactly.
We're not currently trying to win a title.
Exactly. So I think you can
use it as a chance.
Gamble. Yeah, you can gamble.
I mean, again, I know we don't do a lot of loans with options to buy or things like that. Be creative. But look, if you go back to Slot, his selling point, one of the biggest selling points of him coming to Liverpool was his ability to work with squads that were just full of underdogs, full of players that were not the popular choice. And Kev's just decided to fuck off again for a second. But no, like that was what Slot was known for. That's how he made his name, was taking players that were, you know, not the first choice. He made them better. He built them up, and then, you know, he lost them. They sold the players that he built up, but that's how Feyenoord functioned.
Yeah, but I think that was the nature of the league, wasn't it? And
yeah.
The thing is, if you're one of the three strongest clubs in that league consistently, and the gap between you and the rest is as significant as it was, then it makes it easier to make those decisions, because ultimately you know that you're going to lose them all anyway. So it's the difference. And this is going back to Richard Hughes, you know, coming from Bournemouth. You're building a squad at Bournemouth to compete in the Premier League, and if you get a cup run, fantastic. But you're building a squad to sell players, because your stadium isn't big enough to compete with, you know, the top 10 clubs in the Premier League. When you're at Liverpool, your criteria to build a squad out is vastly different, because you're expected to compete in all competitions, and you're expected to have two world-class players in every position. And, you know, it is different.
It is and it's not, though, Kev, because there was a point in time where, you know, Klopp came in, you know, and he said, you know, he didn't have all the money at his feet. He didn't have, you know, the Champions League under his belt at that point. He didn't have the Premier League under his belt. And this, again, was Michael Hughes at the helm here, which is the same person that's at the helm now. And he decided, you know what we're going to do is we're going to go and find these gems before they hit it big. And we are going to take those risks. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. That's what I thought that we would see from Richard Hughes. I wasn't expecting Richard Hughes to come in with the big boy pants on and bring in Florian Wirtz. That's not what I was expecting from him whatsoever. And I'm not mad at it, but I think there's a place for both. There's a place for the summer that we just had, but there's also very much a place for the Michael Edwards of old, where you find those gems and you cultivate them. You can do both. You can have your superstars and your rough diamonds, and you can bring them up together and have that competition. And you have players like Gakpo who need the competition. That's what arguably brought out Gakpo's best.
I know, and that's why I don't get when you hear stuff talking about this summer coming, that they're going to go out and go bang again on more star players. It doesn't. I mean, I get you're going to have to replace Mo Salah, and you're going to have to try to replace his goals and his assists and his contributions. That's not going to come cheap. So I get the links to Michael Olise. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Schlotterbeck makes sense.
Yeah, but that's a gamble. You know, that's you wouldn't want to be paying more than 55 million for Nico.
I mean, I'm definitely not talking about three figures. You
know,
know,
and you wouldn't want to be paying.
It'd be six. I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be paying more than that for Mickey van der Ven either.
Well, I don't understand the links. I mean, look, if Mickey van der Ven is over 100 million pounds, I'm not interested in Mickey van der Ven.
I don't think anything will happen with something like a Mickey van der Ven, because I don't think this summer with a World Cup you could afford another Isak summer-long saga. I think they're going to have to do.
Well, I mean, Mickey van der Ven. That's all. Again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. He's not a player for the now.
Your man from Brighton's the better option.
Van Hecke, he's still got. What is it?
Yeah, they activated that 1 year extension, but
activated the extension.
You know, it's still someone that you could buy.
But, of course it is, but he's 25. You know, he's 25, and he's got 4 caps for the Netherlands. So it's like, you know, he'd be a squad option. You know, as much as I like the look of him, he'd be a squad option. Yeah, and Daniel, you're spot on. Coutinho, when we bought him, was basically an under-21 player. You know, he'd had a little bit of a career, but he was earmarked as an up-and-coming starlet. Bobby Firmino was the one that I thought that I couldn't believe we got. He was
a really rogue decision.
Where we were at the time, I honestly expected clubs who were in a better position than us to be able to come in and get him. I loved
the vision that we had with him.
We were able to get him.
I loved the vision that we had.
I loved him.
One of my favorites is still Gino Wijnaldum.
Yeah. He's another great option.
He did decent. But again, with both of them, Firmino
he was at Newcastle, right? I believe.
Yeah. But both him and Firmino. Firmino was seen as an attacking mid, became the ultimate false 9.
He made a whole new position.
Gino Wijnaldum was left-sided attacker, like 43 is the left-sided attacker. I think he just played everywhere but there for Liverpool. You know what I mean? He became centre mid, DM, centre back for a bit. You know, partly because of his ability, but Liverpool saw the vision of you're good. You can do that job there, but we've got a better idea for you. That's the thinking outside the box as well. You know, so again, I know we all joke about it, but again, look who's getting relegated. Because you know what? Sometimes there's a gem there to be found, which doesn't help January.
Well, that goes to talk about I've seen lads talking about the Mane at Wolves, and he's like,
he'll move, but not for the money they're talking about.
Yeah, I would actually look really look long term at him. I would get him this summer. I say, look, you
could loan him back.
Yeah, you stay at Wolves for a season, go into the Championship, develop your game, and then we'll take you in a year's time when you're more rounded. You know, you're 20 then, and you're ready then. I think a year in the Championship, banging goals, playing well.
It'll toughen you up as well, because let's be honest,
is he mostly left-sided or is he mostly right-sided?
I think he can play. I think he's more left-sided.
Because I mean, he could easily take over for Gakpo Gakpo is probably, not necessarily at the tail end of his career, but I think we'll probably look to move him on in the next year or two.
I think the problem you're going to have to try to move Cody Gakpo on
wages.
Now,
I know wages.
His wages, but in a year's time, with a year less in his contract, then I think that's probably going to be the case where he's ready to go. But look, we can sit here.
I know we could go in circles. I think that it's probably time for us to wrap up. That went much longer than I expected, but I thought that was a good, really good conversation. I'm glad we talked about the academy, sort of rogue shouts. Look, there's nothing else to talk about, so we might as well talk about the structure of the club.
One thing I want to have a quick look at before we go. See if there's any
you do that, and I'll kind of
wrap
out here.
Is this breaking news, Kev?
I just want to have a look and see what's about.
He's gonna come out and say, well, breaking news, we signed someone. No,
let's not be carried away.
No, but look, we will be back tomorrow, I believe, with a random show. I think Gav's gonna be around, along with a couple of our normal regulars. So that'll be biscuits and anything that is not football related. Obviously, if there's anything that randomly pops up on our feeds about signings or things like that, we will be on, lickety split with that, but I do not want to hold my breath for that. And then on Saturday, we've got the game. We will have our post-match. We will have our post-match. We are looking into a final 20 potentially. So, hit your notifications for that. Sunday, normal Sunday night show. And some of these shows are going to be on Patreon. So that post-match show will be on Patreon. Link is over there. So if you want to click that, it's about the price of a coffee. I believe there's a free trial on there as well. We've been getting very good feedback on our post-match shows where we kind of go a little bit
Full
off
rant.
the rails.
Full
we
rant.
go full rant is a good way to describe it. So hopefully we won't need to go full rant this weekend. Hopefully we'll be positive, but we shall see. I think that's it. Kev, any breaking news before we go?
Well, apparently Spurs and Burnley are looking at Raheem Sterling. Chelsea are looking at a potential to bring in Jude Bellingham next summer.
Really?
Yep, 129 million, 150 million euro.
How old is Jude Bellingham? Does he fit the under whatever?
22.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he would randomly fit their thing.
Ajax
Maybe if they sold Cole Palmer.
Well, Ajax are set to sign Alexander Zinchenko.
Okay.
Villa boss Unai Emery is on the shortlist to become the Real Madrid manager.
It doesn't surprise me.
Real Madrid want to sign United fullback Diogo Dalot because of their defensive weaknesses.
Okay.
And on that note,
I'm
turning my phone off and I'm putting it away for fuck's sake.
I'm just imagining Trent Alexander-Arnold watching like Diego Dalot come out in front of him.
Dalot,
Yeah.
What do we think? I think he'll be a buy next summer on the loan.
I don't know.
Trent. I think he'll be loaned. I think he'll be loaned out.
I just don't think it's going the way that he wants it to go, and I don't care.
Nope.
All right, that's it for us tonight. We have kind of milked this for all it's worth. All 1 hour and 45 minutes. I am going to hear it from Gav. Thank you all so much in the chat. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Kev.
You're welcome.
As usual, you guys make the show what it is. That I include you guys. I include Chris and Kev in that. We appreciate you. And we will be back tomorrow. So thank you so much. And onwards and upwards for the Reds. Thank you, Davey, for the insider information about Newcastle. And I hope we crush you this weekend. Good night.